So then we gave each other a big hug and we stood there talking probably for a couple hours. And he answered just about every question I had. But I asked him, I said, well, because at that time I realized what had happened and where I was. So I asked him, I said, how come I wasn't met by mom and dad? And he said, because God knew that if I had been, then I would probably refuse to go back. Which, yeah, that was right.
I'm here today with Jimmy Gleason, who had a near death experience in 2018 from a motorcycle accident. Jimmy, thank you so much for being my guest today. I'm really excited to hear about your story and have this discussion with you.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, if you want to go ahead and tell us about your near death experience, it happened in 2018. You were in a severe motorcycle accident that actually took your life. Take me back and tell me about what happened.
Well, it was on September 22nd of 2018, and it happened at like around 9:30 in the morning. um, I was going on a motorcycle run, a ride for to raise money for kids, and um, the guy who was my apprentice at my tattoo shop, he wanted to go along with me, so I let him go, and he didn't really even have a bike license, but he was riding anyway. I didn't know this all until afterwards. But anyways, he kept playing around and kind of circling around me while he was going down the road. And I didn't like that. So I told him to stop and get behind me. And then we came up on this area that we weren't familiar with, and it was very curvy and hilly. And as we went down this one hill, it was really steep. And I actually thought I was going to lay my bike down on the side going down the hill just so I could get down safely, but I didn't. And then when I got to the bottom, I kind of like steadied myself to go further. And then that's when he hit the back of my bike and he forced me off the road into the ditch. And as I came out of the ditch on the other side, the bike rode up on some small trees and it flipped down on me. And when it did, it the windshield shattered and that sent a piece into my head above my right eye. And I just kind of laid there trying to push the bike off until finally a woman showed up there. And a woman and a man, it was a nurse and her husband, and they tried to pull the bike off of me. And then I just was there until EMTs came. And at that time, I passed from loss of blood from the windshield in my head. It's the only real outside injury that I had. And other than that, I had like lacerations to my liver, kidney, and my spleen. And so I got put on a helicopter, flown to the hospital, and then they tried to help me recover there again. And then I went. They brought me back and they took me into the operating room. I was in there for like 6 hours. And then after that, I was in a coma for 2 months. And they told my wife that she could unplug the machine if she felt I was suffering too much. And when I heard them telling her that, I focused on squeezing her fingers because she had her fingers in my hand, and she must have felt that because then she told the doctor no, she wouldn't be unplugging it. And that's pretty much after that. I was in a coma for 2 months. When I woke up, they didn't. I couldn't see the doctor for until the next day, so I just left the hospital on my own. because I heard the nurses talking, and it was like they were saying how much money it costed for the room or something like that, and I thought it was too much, so I just left. And here I am today.
Did you go to the other side when you were in the coma or when you were in the accident?
Yes, when it was before I went to a coma, when I had the accident, and the next thing I knew, I was just standing in this huge green field, and alongside the field was a path, and I was standing at the end of the path. So I had like my coat and stuff in my arms, and I was just soaked with blood. I was drenched in blood, but I didn't have any pain. So I figured, well, I should go get some help, or look for somebody to help, because somebody might be really needing help. I didn't even realize it was me yet. And then, so I started walking up the path, and it seemed like I walked for hours in that field. And I came to like the corner of the field there was like a narrow gate, and so I walked through the gate. When I walked through the gate, it was like I was in this huge garden, and it seemed like everything. I mean, there was everything in the garden that I've ever heard of growing, like trees, bushes, plants. Every plant you could think of was there. So I just kept walking and walking, and I probably walked for another hour or so. And then I came up, it looked like I could see a light shining, and that's where I came upon this hallway. And as I walked up to the hallway, I could see it was very bright, but I couldn't see any lights. I don't know where the brightness was coming from. So I stepped into the hallway, and then I could see somebody standing down at the other end, toward the other end. So, and it looked like the person was just standing there looking at something on the wall or something. So I went down there, and when I got down there, as I got closer, I could tell who it was. It was my brother, my oldest brother, who had just passed away like weeks before that. So only the reason why I didn't recognize him right away is because he looked like he did when he was like 18 or 19 years old. And all he said to me was, "Yeah, Jimmy, you always like making a big exit." And we kind of laughed, and I said, "Yeah, as long as it didn't hurt." But so then we gave each other a big hug, and we stood there talking probably for a couple hours. And he answered just about every question I had. But I asked him, I said, "Well, because at that time then I realized what had happened and where I was." So I asked him, I said, "How come I wasn't met by mom and dad?" And he said, "Because God knew that if I had been, that I would probably refuse to go back." Which, yeah, that was right. So, but then he told me that I had to go back because it just wasn't my time yet. I still had things that I had to do for God's story. And when he called my name, then I would be able to come back. So I agreed, and I started walking back, and I walked again for hours till I finally got back to the end of that field where that path was. And it was light the whole time. It never got dark. And when I hit the end of that path, then I could hear the team in the hospital was working on me. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of seen them pushing me down the hallway to the OR. And then the rest of the story you already know.
I think that's amazing that you saw your brother who had just passed. So you knew that you were dead when you were over there. There was no question in your mind about it.
Yeah, once I seen him, and he was looked at, like he did when he was 18 or 19. Yeah, then I knew, because he's my older brother. He's probably like 8 years older than me. and I'm 61. So
What kind of questions did you have for him?
we just started talking about, where he was and why he looked so young and stuff like that. And he told me that because when you go there, you end up being as you were in your happiest time of life. So that's why he looked like he was 18 or 19, because at that time he had just went out on his own, and he got engaged to a girl he liked and all that. So I mean, that was all the happiest time of his life. And it was questions like that that I was asking, and that's when um he's he I also asked him about my mom and dad, and he said yes, that he had seen him, but that I wouldn't be seeing him because then I would have a problem with doing what I had to do. So I just listened to what he told me, and we laughed and talked about things that happened when we were younger and stuff, and I really enjoyed the time I got to spend with him.
Did your body also look younger?
For me, I guess I don't know because I didn't see a mirror image. I mean, I felt okay. I didn't have any pain or anything, and I guess I must have looked, you know, like I was supposed to look because he recognized who I was right away. So
And how did it feel over there? Was there any kind of like base emotion or anything like that?
it just felt really peaceful. It was like as soon as I seen the hallway and the light, I could see the inside of the hallway. It was so bright, but I couldn't see any light bulbs or anything in there. So I don't know where that light was coming from, but it was just, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I never had to describe it. It's awe-inspiring, I guess. I don't know. It was so peaceful. It was like it was almost like you could hear the light.
Almost like you could hear the light, you said?
Right. And I mean, I don't know how else to describe that, but that's probably the closest I get to describing it.
Were you raised in like a religious home when you were a child?
I was raised up Methodist, and then as an adult, I've been a Christian. So,
Did you have any sense of God or Jesus or any religious figures on the other side?
um, no, and to be honest, I, I mean, I didn't have to because when I seen my brother, I knew, he'd always been a good person and everything. So I knew that where I must have been because, and then, well, he started telling me about stuff. So that's when I knew I was in heaven. So, and he said that when I came back to stay, I would go through the same thing like he did, and I would probably, excuse me, I would probably appear to people like he did, and they say that usually it's the last person you lost in your family that will greet you. And of course, he was the last person at that time. But I mean, he said that isn't why he was sent, or he was sent because if I guess because my mom and dad would have came too, but they said, God told them no, they couldn't do it. And I guess I understand that. Just think everything he has to deal with. So he takes the ways out that he knows it's going to work or not work. Today, I'm still having, I'm fully healed physically, but inside my head, I can only really see, each side of my brain sees with an eye. You use the one eye, it's in control of one eye. And one side, on my right side, it doesn't dilate. So bright light really affects me. And when when I like talk to people and stuff, I have to when I'm looking at something, if it's something really small and detailed, then I have to look with my left eye because I have better vision in that eye. And so I'm kind of learning how to see again, I guess. I guess I should put it like that. That it seems kind of difficult to keep both eyes open at the same time, but I mean, it's just what happens.
Well, you made a remarkable recovery from such a severe accident where you actually died. So, um, good for you. That was a blessing. When you first woke up from your coma, did you remember everything your experience right away, or did it take some time for the memories to come back?
No, I remembered everything right away. And it's like, I guess I was kind of upset with the hospital staff because, you know, they give me a less than 5% chance of surviving. And to me, I mean, I guess the opinion I got when I heard how they were talking with my wife and stuff is like, well, the doctor said that it was probably the worst injury that he's ever seen yet. So, but it was like so because you don't know if I will survive it. It was kind of like it was almost all like, and I could be wrong saying this, but I just it made me feel like, oh, because you don't know if I'll survive, you don't want to put your time into it. And I don't know. I guess I like I said, I shouldn't feel. I'm thankful that they did what they did that allowed me to be here today. I don't know how to look at that. So
Yeah, it's remarkable that you did recover after that amount of time in a coma. Do you remember anything about being in the coma itself?
no, I can't say that you not until towards the end, just before I woke. It was like I would stir and look to the side or the end of the bed or whatever, and then I would notice if somebody was standing there or not. Other than that, I really can't say that I remember.
Did your experience change you in any way after waking up?
Um, yeah, I think. Well, the one thing I made a promise to my brother to, I asked him. I said, "Could you please, tell God that I will share every bit of my experience that I can and help other people." And he said he would tell him that. So I felt like I made a promise. So, I have to do things to keep up for that promise. So I try I I try my best not to judge people and stuff like that because there's only one judge, and in the end, as I say, everybody talks to God. So,
Do you want to share with us what you promised? Or is that private?
well, I just promised um that I would share my experience with people who were going through hard times, maybe, you know, expecting the death of a loved one or something like that. And so that's why I made that promise, because I want people to know that this isn't the end. When we pass, it's not the end. We still go on. You, from what my brother told me, you just go back into your life when you were very happy at that time of life, and you just live on. You just live just like you normally did. See, that dimension, he said, runs directly alongside the dimension that we're in now. So, people that you have lost already, they're there. They can see you all the time. but we can't see them. I mean, it's one of those things that I guess that's just not the privilege that we get yet. But um, we we only see them when maybe they get distracted and we get a glimpse or catch a smell or hear a noise or something like that, and it's them. But even if you talk out to them, they're not going to respond to you because they're not supposed to. That dimension is supposed to be separate from this dimension, and that's the way it is. And yeah, there are some people. I'm not saying nobody's ever seen a ghost or something like that, and never talked to them or they didn't talk back or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what my brother told me. That's how it's supposed to be. So then, but when I seen him, it wasn't like it was in my home or something or in my yard. It was where I was. I mean, I got in the accident and I passed away right there. So then I went down the field to the garden and into the hallway, and that's when I seen my brother. And it was kind of weird. I can remember pretty good that it was very well lit, white background, and it was like I remember a little pillar there in the hallway, and it had like it was a little white fence, so to speak. And because I remember I was kind of leaning against the pillar when we were talking. He always stayed around on the one side of the fence, and I always stayed on my side of the fence. So, I mean, I don't know if that's where he crossed over, I guess, but he didn't want to come over on the side where I was standing on. So it was like he was allowed to go so far, and that was it.
So it was like you were kind of separated from him because you hadn't fully died. Is that kind of what it was like?
Um, yeah, it was like I was being shown that there was a difference. That's how I remember it being. It was. I can see that. I can still see that little fence in my mind yet today. I see everything. It all is just like I just have problems finding words anymore to describe things, but I don't speak as well as I used to either.
Did it look like Earth or did it look like someplace else?
No, it was in this hallway. It was a very bright lit white hallway. And like I said, I could see there was light coming from, but I couldn't. There was like no lights in the ceiling or anything like that. It was just a bright light. It was like I don't know if you want to say the sun was shining down it or something. I don't know, but it was very brightly lit. When I could see him, I could tell that kind of where the floor was. So I just started walking, and until I got close enough, I was probably like 15 feet away from when I realized who it was. I was kind of like shocked. I was like, I just didn't know what to say. And then that's what he said to me that I always like making a big exit. And and I guess that was just his joke, I guess, but we laughed and that's how I remember it. And still today, I remember it was just so crazy how he looked. But I mean, I was glad I experienced what I did. So, because I don't know that otherwise I would ever get that kind of experience. I mean, not that I want to go out and die just to get that experience. I'm not saying that, but he he told me that because well, I rode bike for over 30 years, and during the riding season, I would I would get on a fundraising ride at least once a month. So I probably did it. Well, that year it would have been in 2018. It would have been my ninth ride, and I always tried to find rides that like raise money for kids that were in need, stuff like that. So,
After your experience, did your perception of death change at all?
yeah, I would say it did. To be totally honest, I would do things where like I would go on rides and stuff for people, and I've been to funerals and stuff like that, and I just always thought that okay, the person's gone now. I don't know. I really didn't know where they were gonna go, but now I look at things a whole different way. It's yeah, it's not the end for us. We don't just because we're no longer here in this life, it's not the end for us.
Where do we go when we die, do you think?
Well, okay. What he told me was some people, you know, like for I guess I'm just say it like this. There's like there's some places that people consider to be haunted, and that's because that person that probably owned that home uh, had things that they wanted to do yet and weren't ready to give it up. So they linger on, and they, people see things or whatever because it's that person still trying to um, claim that time that is already lost. When the time comes, from what he told me, that even though they might be able to linger for a while, they can't linger forever because God makes them make a decision if they want to follow him or not. If they follow him, then they go on to heaven, which I guess, in my opinion, that's the way I would go for sure now. That, I mean, I could have said um, that before this happened to me that, geez, baby, I'll just hang around and, pester people or whatever. But no, I'll go on to where I've already seen to what I've already seen because I know just by the way the light felt that that's the way to go.
What happens if someone chooses not to go with God? What happens then?
Well, they linger, and over time, their energy might see when we pass away. The our soul is energy. It's our spiritual energy that's inside this body that God gave us to hold it. Now, when we die, it's because that body is no longer capable of continuing on with it. So, in that point, then we just, our energy leaves our body and it goes on to, some people linger around where they used to live and stuff like that. And that's where people say, oh, we have a ghost that haunts us or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that spirit that's still there that doesn't realize it should move on. Some people don't even know that they've died. So once they find out, then they go right away. So I guess my in my experience, what I would do is say, if somebody said, "Oh, my house is on," I would say, call that spirit out and tell them you're not here no more. You have to move on. This isn't your place anymore, and just explain to them that it's now your place, and you appreciate everything they did with it, but now you want to go on and finish kind of what they had started with their home. So it's I'm not, I would be pleasant with them. I wouldn't be mean to them or harsh. I would just explain to them that you know what they felt being in the house or having the house, and now it's your house, and that you want to be able to take care of things. If you want them to, I mean, if I can't tell people what to say, but if they said, well, you can stay here as long as you don't bother us, well, that's fine too. But if they find happiness there, they're not going to be there very long.
Are you afraid of death?
No, not no more. I'm not. If it happens, it happens, and I'll just accept that it does.
Were you afraid before you had this experience?
Yeah, I was. I'm not gonna say I wasn't. I was. I served in the army. I fought in Grenada, and so I went through some parts of my life that, yeah, I've heard bullets whizzed by me and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, I've been there, but I'm not scared of it anymore. Not like I used to be.
Did you bring back any gifts like clairvoyance or anything like that?
No, see, I've had that ability since I was very young, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and we moved from the country into the town. Now, I remember my dad always telling me to stay away from when we lived out in the country, he told me to stay away from the garage. And I said, why? He goes, just stay away from there. So he, I did. Well, I found out years later that there was the old guy that used to live there before us. He actually died in the garage. So, but when we moved into town, we moved into the town of Racine, Wisconsin, and I could see things every day there. Every night, I would look out my bedroom window and I would watch, just keep watching. And pretty soon I would see this group of people walk through my yard. They were all dressed like they were going to work, and they were headed in the direction of a field behind my home where a factory used to be. It was a tire factory. And I mean, I remember those people, they used to wave at me and call my name, say hi, Jimmy, stuff like that. I mean, I remember it like it happened yesterday. So, but then I knew that, I mean, I started watching to where they actually came from, and they would come out of this lilac bush that was in the corner of our yard, and there was a fence behind the lilac bush. So it's not like there's a gate there or something. So then I started realizing what I was seeing, and I don't know, I had been able to see things like that forever. I just don't know how to explain not seeing them, because I don't remember ever not seeing them, to be honest with you. And I know that I remember, like, on Memorial Day, I would go with my mom to the cemetery. We'd decorate some graves and stuff like that. And I remember seeing people walking around in the cemetery that were dressed like they did 100 years ago. And I don't know, I would say so. I know my mom, she would get upset with me when I talk about it, because I think it made her nervous to you know, even let me have me be able to know things like that. So, but I remember seeing an old guy. My mom was working on my aunt's grave, and I could see this old guy across the cemetery. And within a couple minutes, and he was looking at me, and then he waved, and I waved back, and that was it. So yeah, I've seen things for a long time, and I'm 61 years old today. It's not my birthday, but I mean, today I'm 61 years old, and so I've seen things for at least 45 years, probably.
Have you ever seen your relatives that have passed over?
Um, well, I seen my brother, I seen, but I seen my dad when he first left. It was right after he left, and I've seen my mom right after she left. I've seen some aunts and a couple uncles too. It's kind of a neat experience. Some people, I suppose, would be afraid of it, but I guess I'm not afraid of that. I'm just, when it does happen, I like to make sure it's for real and not just something I'm thinking about. Or,
How can you make sure that it's for real?
well, I acknowledge them and they acknowledge me back, and then we talk a little bit, and just by the way, with things that we talk about, stuff, I know that it's it's for real.
From your experience and actually from your early childhood experiences as well, being able to see deceased people, what does that kind of tell you about who we are as human beings? Like, what are these lives?
Well, it's like I told you. Um, See, God gives us this body, and it's in he. That's where He chose His own form. He gave us a body like His, and it's borrowed. Basically, we're allowed to use it until it's no longer can work for us. So, and then our spirit moves on, and like I said, we might be hanging around home for a little bit or whatever. Yeah, once we realize that we're gone and everybody is okay, we move on. We go on to the next dimension, which is heaven, and we just live our life over there. I mean, my brother and I, we didn't use like technical terms. We're not that kind of people. We just talk, common speak, I suppose you call it. But it's, I suppose it's kind of what you've heard many people always talk about, but not say that they really believed it. But now I believe it. I know it's true. So I'll accept whatever God, when He calls my name, I'll go.
You said that realm is kind of, or dimension is right running along with ours. So our loved ones who are in heaven and just heaven in general, it's right here with us now.
Um, yeah, I mean, they could hear us and see us. They could they could smell us, touch us. They can do whatever. And I guess I could say in my lifetime, I probably have felt all that stuff. So I don't know if you ever had a situation like that before where you was maybe like working in your kitchen or something and you felt like somebody was standing there watching you or something and you turn and look and there's nobody there. That kind of a situation. Now, when you think about that, okay, think about this. Now, let's say you're standing somewhere and it feels like somebody's behind you and you turn and you look and somebody is standing there. So that tells you that your reactions are right, probably. Okay, so if you feel that way, that same exact way, and you turn and look and nobody's there, then it's probably a very well could be somebody paying a visit or just there with you, period.
So it's a good way to kind of test your intuition.
Right.
Are there other ways that people can develop their gifts?
I don't know. Because this has just been always been a natural thing for me. So I really couldn't tell you if they can develop it or not. Um, I don't know what else I could develop to be honest with you. Um, to be honest, I just wish I could get my vision and everything to be good again. So if I get my vision to be good, and I'm back to where it was in the beginning, I can accept my voice and I can accept everything else, I suppose, except I just love to have my vision so I could see everything clearly. It feels like my eyelids are like weigh 5 pounds apiece, so it's hard to keep my eyes open.
Well, you don't need to keep your eyes open for this. You feel free to close your eyes if that feels more comfortable. Um, do you believe in reincarnation?
I thought about that, and I guess yes, I suppose I do because when I think about it, I mean, as bad as my accident was, it didn't damage my body so bad that I couldn't come back to it. Now, if, for example, let's say it had, and let's say, oh, geez, I don't know, like thinking about decapitation or something like that. Well, you don't have a body to go back to then. So then I suppose, yeah, reincarnation would be where they would actually come back in a new body. So yeah, I could see that happening.
Why do we come here to Earth? Is there a meaning to it?
Um, I never asked that. I don't. I think it's just to be part of God's creation. We're part of His. We're telling His story basically. This is all God's story. So when my part in His story is done, He'll call my name and I'll be gone. And that's how it works. Now, I'm not saying there isn't life on any other planets or anything like that because, I mean, who knows? Only God knows that. And I'm not going to say that there isn't because I believe He could make that happen. So, but at the same time, when you think about, like people seeing UFOs and whatever, things like that, yeah, I guess that kind of proves that yeah, there could be life somewhere else. I mean, we traveled to the moon, and they talked about going to Mars and stuff, but look how long it would take to get there. So, I mean, if somebody else is beat us to the punch, well, then that's the way it is.
If my viewers wanted to reach out to you, Jimmy, if they had more questions for you, would that be okay?
Sure.
How can they find you?
Well, I use Facebook, and or they can just send me an email if they want at Gleason Gleasonja 63 at gmail.com.
Jimmy, this has been really amazing for me and such a blessing to have you as my guest. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and discuss your experience with me.
Well, thank you for the invite, and I appreciate it because I was always worried that people would laugh at me or something. So I guess why I never really talked about it.
Nobody's going to laugh at you here. This is very profound and we all appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.